All right, welcome crew. This is our March Outdoor Equity Grant Board meeting. Thanks for joining everyone. We have a lot to get through today um, and a lot of important decisions to make and discussions to have to get us set up for planning for the Outdoor Equity Grant Program. Um, for We have at least one person and another staff member joining who haven't been on our meetings before. So welcome to Daphne and Brittany. And so that you all know, we do a round of introductions and an icebreaker question at the beginning of every meeting. And we do record our meetings and then post them public on the Outdoor Equity Grant Board website. So just a reminder, we are recording for everybody. And I will pass it over to Ashton to lead our introductions and our icebreaker.
Beautiful. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's very warm March is going well. This month, the icebreaker question will be, what's your favorite spring activity? Because spring just started and it's been a very warm and outdoor friendly spring recently. But my name is Ashton. I use they, them pronouns. I am one of the youth board members, and my favorite spring activity is um, taking my niece on hikes.
Do you want to just popcorn it around, Ashton?
Sure. The person next to me in my visual is Hilda, so I'll pass off to you.
You mentioned me. Sorry. Hi, Ilda Nusete. I'm based out of Denver, Colorado. She, her, ella pronouns. I am the conservation seat. And can you repeat the icebreaker question? Sorry. What's your favorite
Yes.
spring activity? Favorite spring
Yes.
activity has been really just kind of going hikes around Sloan's Lake. It's just so, or like little walks around the lake. It's just so pretty. It's just beautiful to spend time outside. And I will kick it to Dawson.
Thank you. Hey, everyone. Say Dawson Metcalf, he, him, coming from Fort Collins, Colorado, and I serve in the LGBTQ plus seat. And my favorite spring activity is definitely trail running. So I will throw it over to Modesta.
Hello, everyone. Modesta McGrath Martinez. I'm based in Westminster, Colorado, and I'm the outdoor education seat. My favorite spring activity is, I think, there's this one hot spring that I like to go to specifically in the like shoulder seasons, and so spring is one of those. And I'm not going to tell you which one. All right, I'll pass it to Chris.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Chris Obi. I'm based in Colorado Springs. I represent Great Outdoors Colorado on the board. My favorite outdoor springtime activity is just seeing all the trees that are blooming and flowers, walking around to my neighborhood, admiring other people's gardens because mine never look as good as theirs. So that is my favorite, and I will pass it to Raquel.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Raquel Cabeza Lemus. I am the second youth seat, and my favorite spring activity is going to the park and also seeing the trees blooming. I'll pass it to Brittany.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to attend your meeting and to present to you all in a little bit. My name is Brittany Hart Gemmel. I use she, her pronouns. And my favorite activity, I love so many things, but I'm going to say baseball because it's on the top of my mind. Opening days are coming up. Oh, and I will pass to Fletcher.
Thanks, Brittany. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Fletcher Jacobs, he, his pronouns with Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Um, my favorite spring activity, that's a hard one. It's a sad answer this year because it's really spring skiing. So that was something that didn't happen this year. So instead, we watched college basketball, which was also fun, but not quite as, outdoorsy. So I think, and Daphne, I think is up.
Thanks, Fletcher. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. My name is Daphne Gervais. I'm on day two as CPW's new Deputy Assistant Director of Partnerships. So very excited to get to know this group. I definitely know a little bit about the amazing work that the Outdoor Equity Grant Program does. My previous role was really focused on legislative policy and budget advocacy. So was recently involved in an initiative to plus up the much needed funding for this program. So yeah, really excited to dive into the work today and to get to know all of you a little bit better. And let's see, I will pass it over to Selena.
You got to say your favorite spring activity.
Oh, of course. I feel like there's a pattern that I'm picking up on in this group, and I'm just going to add to that pattern by saying hiking.
All right, Allie will go next. My name is Selena. I am based in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I am the Outdoor Equity Grant Program Associate, and I use she, her pronouns. And my favorite spring activity is probably hammocking slash hiking. Like I like to hike to a good spot, find like some good trees and pitch my hammock and hang out and read for a little bit. I'll send it to Crystal next.
Thank you. I'm Crystal. I hold the pronoun she, her. I hold the 2-year youth position on the board. And I'm located in far northeast Denver. And my favorite springtime activity is going on picnics. This actually reminded me to go wash my picnic blanket that I usually leave in my car. So yeah, going on picnics and just sitting at the park in the sun. And then I'll pass it on to Ida.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ida Nelson, she, her. I sit in the environmental justice seat on the board. And lately, I have been noticing lots of baby animals, like little baby geese, different birds. I saw some fawns. So that's been like, oh, and then just regular. I saw a bunch of puppies this last week too, which was really great. So yeah, my favorite will be all the baby animals. Andrea?
Yeah, thanks, Ida. Hey, everybody. Andrea Kurth, she, her. I'm the Outdoor Equity Grant Program Manager at Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and I'm based in Frisco, Colorado. And lately, I've just been really enjoying watching the sunset now that it's a little bit later and getting those nice mountain sunsets up here, different colors, and being out and about a little bit later in the day and not having the sun go away at like 4 p.m. Um, and I think Frida, you might be our last one, but please raise your hand, somebody, if somebody else hasn't gone yet. And Frida, you're muted. Yeah.
Yes, hi everyone. I was trying to change my name. I don't know how to on mobile, but I'll figure it out. It's with A at the end, of course. But nice to see everybody. I'm Frida. I'm the marketing operations coordinator with the OREC team. We have a permanent seat on the board. My favorite spring activity is, I think, reading outside, laying on a blanket on the grass, so nice and tranquil. And I actually got to do that yesterday, so I'm looking forward to doing more of that with this warmish weather. So, yeah.
Sweet. Thanks, Frida. I went ahead and changed your name for you. Okay. I'll just quickly share our agenda for today. Okay. So we're right here in welcome and introductions. We'll pass it over to Crystal in just a moment to give a presentation on some board outreach that she was able to go and do last month. So excited to hear about her experience there and that event. Then we'll pass it over to Brittany to talk about the Colorado Wildlife Council, a really interesting pretty maybe related, similar other council within CPW that does some cool work and possibly that we could collaborate with. So opening the door there to potential collaboration. Then I'll give an overview of our grant application process. It'll be a review for some of you and new information for some of you. That way we can dive into some other key questions about the grant program later on in the meeting. We'll take a break for 10 minutes and then talk about some grant policies, just updates that perhaps we want to make for this year, some discussions we want to have. Then Selena will give us a presentation about applicant feedback from our application process last year, and then we'll dive into the board's vision for the 2026 application process, the application, and a little bit of a retrospective of 2025. I'll pause there while Mackenzie is getting all set up on Zoom before we roll off of our introductions. Any questions about anything on the agenda? Just so we know where we're heading. Okay, I'll quit that. Hey, Mackenzie, welcome.
Yeah. Hi. I am so sorry I'm late. No, you're good. I'm gonna move to the other desk.
You're totally fine. While you're off mute, Mackenzie, do you want to just quickly do your introduction, name, pronouns, location, what seat you hold, and then our icebreaker question for today was favorite spring activity.
Okay, I will. I am Mackenzie Mayer. I hold the seat of person with a disability. My pronouns are she, her. I go back and forth between Colorado Springs and Fort Collins, and my favorite spring activity. That is a good one. There's so many activities I love. But probably just getting out in the fresh air and sunshine and being outdoors. So and what did I miss anything?
Nope. Thanks for sharing. Welcome. And then we have admin. I'm not sure who that is. If you want to identify yourself. Not sure if it's Benny or someone who just joined admin. Okay. Maybe just somebody joining in to listen in. But welcome, whoever you are. And yeah, I know Fletcher and Daphne, you might have to hop off a little bit early today. So I don't know if there's anything else that you all want to share. We have about 5 minutes in the agenda, kind of on our welcome and introductions.
Sure, I'll jump in there. Yeah, again, great to see everyone. Thanks for allowing us to join in. Apologies, we had a 1:30 meeting get called for us that we have to jump off for. We'll try to get back on when that wraps up. But yeah, as Daphne already said, we're really excited to have her on board as the Deputy Assistant Director for Partnerships. So we talked about last month, that meeting we'll start having more familiar faces that come to these meetings. And yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement still, as you know, Daphne said, we continue to keep track of obviously the funding conversation that we all have all the time, tracking about kind of where the money comes from. Really excited to have Daphne in this role, given her understanding of the legislative side of things and from that policy perspective, and kind of move now to more of the implementation piece. So really happy to have her on board with the team. Also be working really closely with the partners in the Outdoors Conference that I know some of you are hopefully going to be able to attend, and we'll be there for the luncheon there on Monday morning as well. So yeah, Daphne, I don't know if you have anything else to say. I think you did a great job of covering this up earlier as well.
Yeah, no, I might have gotten a little bit ahead of myself in the introduction, shared a little bit about my background, but for those of you that I haven't had the chance to work with, spent the last 3 or so years as the Director of Legislative Affairs with the Department of Natural Resources, so really working on advancing legislative and budget priorities through that venue. And then prior to that, worked as a legislative and policy advocate for Colorado Counties Incorporated. So have a solid foundation of the local government landscape across the state, but have gained a really thorough appreciation for a lot of the work that the partnership section at CPW does. So, like I said, just really excited to dive in and to get to know all of you better. But if I can ever be of assistance, certainly don't hesitate to reach out directly, and hopefully I can meet some of you face to face at the conference.
Wonderful. Thanks, Daphne. Hi, Benny. Welcome. Would you like to jump in with your intro? We just wrapped up our round of intros, and um, our icebreaker question for today is, what is your favorite spring activity?
Um, Hi everyone, you can hear me then?
Yeah.
Benny Samuels. I serve on the racial justice seat. This is my second term, and my favorite spring activity is to start seeds.
Wonderful. Thanks, Benny. Okay. Crystal, I will pass it over to you to give your presentation, and you should have ability to share screen.
Oh, sorry. I assumed the PowerPoint slides might have been in um like the overall
Okay.
slides. So I might need a
Selena, do you
second to pull it
have
up.
Crystal slides?
Yeah, I'm looking them up right now. Give me just a few
Okay,
minutes.
cool.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. Why don't you go ahead and get started while she's getting those pulled up?
Yeah, I got lost in conversation during this event, so I didn't take that many pictures and honestly took a few others. So there's not too many visuals to my presentation. But yeah, I attended the Black in the Outdoors events hosted by Jason Swan, the director of Rising Routes. And then I think it was co-hosted by Manny Alamonte, the founder of Camping to Connect. And this event was held during Black History Month in February. And the overall theme or the goal of the event was emphasizing the importance of belongingness and representation in Black communities in the outdoors. And I did see a lot of familiar faces there, so it was nice to see y'all. And if I didn't get to talk to you, I definitely saw you from a distance. But yeah, it was a great event. It was held at the Denver Nature and Science Museum, which was really beautiful. And the first hour or so of the event, it was a networking period. So for me, networking sessions, I guess, are a little intimidating for me just because usually there's so many people at those events where it's like I don't know who to approach, how to start a conversation. But um, I did end up having some conversation. I had trouble remembering her name, but she was the lawyer or is the lawyer doing pro bono work for Jason at Rising Routes. So it was really cool to hear her perspective on environmental law and just the legal side of working at just like I guess outdoor equity programs and things like that. So really cool to hear her perspective. I also met a woman who was in her 40s or 50s, and she lives in the same neighborhood I did, and she grew up here. So it was really cool to connect with people in my community. Yeah, got to talk to amazing people. And then afterwards, following the networking time, it was we all went to auditorium, and it started off by we were shown a short film called Wood Hood, and there will be videos of or screenshots of that um, film. But essentially, what the film is, I think it was directed or produced by Manny, the director of Camp to Connect. And to give a little bit context of what Camp to Connect is, it's a organization who also were recipients of the Outdoor Equity Grant. I don't think last year, but past years they have been. And their goal or their programming is to take young men of color outdoors, taking them camping, and also like alongside exposing them to the outdoors. It's also a mentorship program. And that's what essentially the documentary or the short film was doing. It was following a boy who lived in New York, and he used solo camping and hiking in nature as an escape to the city. And the film just followed him and his journey, and he decided to join. Um, oh yeah, they received funding 3 times. That's great. And then yeah, the film showed that program, the Camp to Connect, and it showed all the other young men going on night hikes and their first time camping and their whole entire journey on being outdoors for the first time. So it was a really cute. They did a lot of fun self-reflection, and it was a really impactful documentary. So yeah, Woodhood. So I think it's only 20 minutes, but again, very impactful, and I highly encourage you to watch it. It was my first time watching it. But yeah, following that documentary, we had an amazing panel of folks, including Benny, who was on there. She did an amazing job. And then 2 other amazing individuals, Angel Macy and Phil Henderson. Um, Angel Macy, I forgot the organization she founded. I think, I had it pulled up. Oh yeah, Wanderland Outdoors. And one of the things that they do is host outdoor events, so like horseback riding, fly fishing, and I think she does a lot of land and water rights and that relationship with land and water and people. And then Phil Henderson, who I didn't hear of until this event. So hearing all of his accomplishments was pretty jaw-dropping. He summited Mount Everest, Mount Kilimanjaro. He's trained many individuals to learn how to teach other people how to summit. He's the director of, I think it's called Full Circle Expeditions. So yeah, very cool things he's accomplished and done. And yeah, the conversation went great. The moderator or the one asking questions was Jason, and he did a wonderful job at facilitating questions and elaborating. So yeah, I guess the overall takeaways I got from the conversation and the questions were 3 things. Um, Community, collaboration, and education. Community and collaboration kind of went hand in hand. Benny brought an amazing point that I made sure I made note of, but she mentioned how important it is, again, to be a huge support for your community, and also understanding your skill sets and your strengths that you can help contribute to a bigger cause or bigger purpose. So, for example, Angel, she has a degree in journalism. So, she was just highlighting how she can put into words and share with the public to help understand her message and her goals. And then Benny has the expertise of having a business and making sure there's money and funding and revenue for these programs and organizations. And then Phil Henderson, he had the expertise of actually bringing those folks out there and making sure things are done safely and all those things. So I think, again, just that idea of collaboration was huge, because all of us do have our strengths. So putting it all together and especially putting it back into the community is really important. So that was a great highlight. And then the third takeaway was education. I think Phil Henderson made it a great point, saying, first off, not accessible. Of course, we all know that. But he mentioned when you do have knowledge of certain things, then it's important to share that with people. So he highlighted that He's been in his work industry for so long that he understands the right time frames to sign up for permits or to make reservations or to request for grants. He's done it for so long that he said in his head he knows like what to do. So and then highlighting again how it wasn't easy for him to do that or find that information. So that education piece of knowing how the system works and being able to share that with other people who don't know it or who yeah aren't in those privileged spaces where they can know that information or learn about it. So again, three takeaways is collaboration, community, and education. And I think I highly recommend everyone to go to this event. I believe it was only their second one and it was great. So I could only imagine it growing and more people attending and all those things. But yeah, that was my overall takeaway. Again, highly encourage you to go or even just look up the individuals that I mentioned because they do amazing outdoor equity work. So yeah.
Thanks, Crystal. We have a
Yeah.
few minutes if anybody has questions for Crystal or Benny, since Benny was also a big part of the event.
Yeah, definitely.
Benny, what was your favorite question that they asked you in that panel? Or what was like the most insightful question that you're like, oh, anything that was asked or in that conversation, you're like, I am really excited that I was able to elevate that.
Um, it was a bit ago. I was really taken back and sort of uh by and what's her name? Angela?
Angel?
Angel.
Angel. By Angel's comment about the struggles and challenges around permits and water rights and being able to run her business and the challenges of running her business with the current policies and regulations in place related to licensing as it relates to water and land and public and private land. That was really, and then, Phil sort of doubled down on that was also something that was a challenge for the work that he does. And frankly, not something that I was like super aware of. So
Thanks,
Thank
Benny.
you. Yeah, water rights are super weird. Like it's just such, and especially water source in Colorado have been really strong. But yeah, we can get into all the water policy. Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, thanks, Crystal. Just as a reminder to everyone, you can work with Selena to do your board outreach, and we're trying to bring some more opportunities for you all to share your experiences and what you're learning out in community and bring it back to the full board so we can have more of these discussions. And also, that way, it's not always me just talking at you every meeting. So, thanks, Crystal, for being our guinea pig and going first. And we're excited to hear from the rest of you. And with that, I'll pass it over to you, Brittany.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to take a second to set up my screen. So
No
just bear with me,
problem.
please. Because I only have one screen at home. I have to. Okay. Are you able to see my slides on your
Yes.
screen? Okay. Perfect. Okay, great. So I know we've already done introductions, but just to reiterate who I am, my name is Brittany Earhart Gemmel, and I serve as the Colorado Parks and Wildlife representative on the Colorado Wildlife Council. So I'm going to use the next 20 minutes to give you all on the board a pretty brief but efficient overview of who the Wildlife Council is, our mission and what work we're currently engaged in. And then also at the end, I'd love to have space and time for us to discuss ways that the Wildlife Council and this board can work on future collaborating together. So, who is the Wildlife Council? You may be asking that. The Colorado Wildlife Council, we were formed by the Colorado State Legislature in 1998. So we do have a state statutory that we do have to abide by. And by statute, the council's mission is to oversee the design of a public education program to inform the general public about the benefits of wildlife management, and wildlife-related recreational opportunities in Colorado, specifically hunting and fishing. So I like to say that we as the council exist to connect people to the why behind wildlife conservation. And our focus is education. We're helping the public understand, number one, the value of wildlife and healthy ecosystems, how wildlife is actively managed in Colorado. And then with all of that, the critical role that hunting and fishing play in wildlife conservation. And that's great to know and understand that we have a state statute and what we're doing, right? But really, truly, what is it that we're doing? The council, we're overseeing a statewide education and marketing campaign. Essentially, we are placing ads in front of targeted audiences to raise awareness about about how conservation is funded and sustained, specifically through hunting and fishing. It's also really important to note that we as the council are not a regulatory body. We are what I like to say a public awareness engine. I think that's like the best way to describe who we are and what it is that we're doing. And our most current campaign works to showcase the critical role that hunting and fishing license fees play in funding and supporting the work that wildlife conservation engages in, such as work that Colorado Parks and Wildlife engages in through our wildlife biologists and wildlife officers. Be that, for instance, rescuing wildlife is a great example of work that is funded through hunting and fishing license fees. And I know I'm going to share a video with you next. I know that video sharing can sometimes be sloppy. I will definitely share this deck with Andrea post this call so you can view the videos a bit more robustly. So hopefully it plays okay for all of you.
Brittany, when you shared your screen, did you check the box that said audio sharing?
Oh,
You might
I did
have to
not.
like exit out and then re-share.
Okay.
Like stop sharing and then it's at the bottom.
Oh, geez. Okay. I did not click that. I'm
No
so
worries.
unused to Zoom. Also, I made Andrea like join the call early because I was like, can I practice sharing my screen? Because we use Google Meet at the state. Okay. So I have to, I
You
did
should have
actually,
practiced the videos.
I wonder if I have to click stereo. Because it was actually clicked.
Oh,
But there's a section that says mono and then stereo. So I'll just do that and we'll see if
okay.
that,
Let's try.
okay. Oh wait, sorry. It's making me enter a password. We might have to skip. Okay.
The funny thing is, every time I pump gas, I get one of these ads now.
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know
we
if
have,
anybody else has experienced that.
I need to open my, okay. You can see my slides, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see if this works.
Yes.
We interact with both people and wildlife every day. We got a call about an elk with a rope swing tangled in its antlers.
Nice to see you. Yeah. So
It might sound funny, but thanks to hunting, we were able to save his life. License fees from hunting and fishing, not tax dollars, pay for rescues like this. And inspiring moments like that.
Let's go, go on, go.
So that's just one example of a commercial that we as the Wildlife Council have pushed out to our target audiences. I personally love that video so much because it showcases real field experience from one of our wildlife officers. The end portion of that commercial, you see him cutting the tire swing from the antlers of that elk, and then the elk standing up and walking away. It's such an impactful and truthful showcase of wildlife conservation in action by Colorado Parks and Wildlife staff, which is funded by hunting and fishing license fees. And what I really love most about that too is that our CPW officer, he took the initiative to put a GoPro camera on. He like strapped it on his chest to take that, and we were fortunate to be one of the lucky recipients of that video. And I think it just showcases the incredible work that happens so well. So, okay, so kind of give you a very brief overview of, generally what guides a wildlife council, but why does our work as a wildlife council matter? Wildlife conservation doesn't happen in a vacuum. We really need public understanding and support, and education helps build long-term stewardship across communities. So that's why we work to share how wildlife conservation is funded, how wildlife populations are managed, and how recreation connects to conservation as well. And, I'd like to kind of synthesize that down to a very key element of what we as the council are striving to share, which is that wildlife conservation is largely user funded, and revenue from hunting and fishing licenses directly supports habitat restoration, wildlife research and population management, fish hatcheries, wildlife crossings and migration corridors, and long-term habitat protection. That work that is done, it benefits all wildlife, right? So big like the elk we just looked at in the last commercial, and small like bats, which are my favorite species of wildlife for the record. I'm going to share another video.
Did you know one little brown bat can eat thousands of mosquitoes in a night? We're using microchips to study their behavior. You wouldn't think hunting helps bats, but license fees from hunting and fishing pay for research like we're doing today.
Love bats. Okay, so you may be wondering who all makes up the Wildlife Council. So we are a council with 9 seats. Hold up a second. You may be looking at your screen and saying, but there's only 8 people on this screen. And that's because we do have an open seat on our council for our East Slope angler representative. That position is going to be open in April, and I will gladly share that with Andrea so she can share that with you all as well. So we will be seeking out someone new to join our council. But this is who is currently on our council, and it includes volunteers that represent outdoor and conservation communities such as agriculture, local government, hunters and anglers, municipalities. We have a media and marketing representative, and then myself, of course, from Colorado Parks and Wildlife. Now you may be wondering how we receive funding, because I think any of us that have ever known about or placed an ad anywhere know that advertising doesn't come cheap, right? And truly, at our core, as the Wildlife Council, we are an advertising and marketing council, essentially. So We're funded through the Wildlife Management Public Education Fund. You may be asking, what is that? That is a fund that is generated through a surcharge of $1.50 on every Colorado hunting and fishing license. And we have been fortunate, as you can see from probably this graph that's really small on your screen. My apologies for that. But you can see from this graph that over the last 8 years, we've seen a pretty steady growth with our revenue. But in the last 2 to 3 years, you can see our revenue has pretty steadied out. And actually, our current projections for the future are at a stable or potentially shrinking level as well. I think that, I can say with a lot of gr gratitude that our funding allows us to focus on the campaign and the messaging, as opposed to having to utilize time and resources to discover additional funding avenues. So it ensures that we're staying focused on education, awareness, and public engagement overall. And maybe you've seen some of our ads. Here's just a small examples of some of the placements that we have out in the world currently. Our primary work and the bulk of our budget focus on advertising buys that are placed through a marketing agency. And ads are geared towards a very specific audience. So we seek to speak to adults aged 18 to 44 who are outdoorsy. That's what we like to call them, outdoorsy. So basically people that enjoy hiking, fishing, and camping. And we have a wide variety of ad placements through billboards, a lot of digital advertising. We also are fortunate that we've had a very successful multi-year sponsorship with the Colorado Rockies. You can see on the right-hand side, we have a very large scale moose. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. Moose mural. That's really hard for me to say for some reason, in the Rocky Stadium. So if you ever find yourself there, I believe we're near Concourse B. Go over, take a photo with our mural. We would love to see that, and you can tag us in that if you do that too. And of course, we have loads of other avenues for our placements as well, like social media, newsletters, and lots of other areas. And in addition to a lot of our paid advertising, which, like I said, is the bulk of our budget, we do allocate a small portion of our budget to speak directly to hunters and anglers. This work is done by the council at a grassroots level, and we utilize tactics that focus on securing sponsorship buys with organizations that reach hunters and anglers, creating our own community events. For instance, we've held wildlife trivia nights at breweries. We've hosted ice fishing clinics in state parks. We recently held this past fall a trail talk on Kenosha Pass the first weekend of fall, and got to talk to a lot of great people and handed out a bunch of swag, gave people granola bars and things. That was a really great event. So, and we also, in addition to that, with our smaller portion of budget, host an annual awards program called our Conservationist of the Year Award, which applications for that award program are open right now until March 31st. So yeah, that in essence is everything that the council is doing. I know I just put a lot at you very quickly. And I want to share one more video with you, just because this is our most current video. And if you happen to see any of our commercials, this may be one that you currently see.
Once gone from Colorado, the river otter was restored to our waters, thanks to efforts funded by hunting and fishing licenses. Those funds help keep lands and rivers healthy for all of us to enjoy. So this is probably just one otter that left these tracks here. Cleaner waterways don't just help river otters thrive. They give us better ways to paddle, play, and connect.
That's all these videos have been my favorite, by the way. And if you want to know a fun fact about that video, actually, our production team had to create river otter prints that they got 3D printed onto plastic to make those otter prints in the video. So we didn't actually see real otter tracks on set. That would have been amazing if we did, but that's just a little movie magic for you. You know what? Why am I here? Why am I talking to all of you this afternoon? I think we as the council recognize that there feels like there's strong natural alignment with the incredible work that you all are doing as a board. And I think overall that, we have a shared goal, which is connecting more people to the outdoors. And I've laid out a couple of potential areas of collaboration, but would love to open this up for additional conversation. Potentially areas could be co-creating or sharing educational content, integrating, promoting wildlife discussions with each other. But yeah, I think in general, I would love to stop here and ask all of you if there are other opportunities for alignment or collaboration that you could see. And before we get into that, I do want to just preface this by saying that um, I really want to ensure from the council's viewpoint that this is something that is a two-way partnership and not just a one-way message. I want to be really respectful and cognizant of that. And yeah, I want to build something that feels mutually beneficial if possible as well. So I will stop there and would love to hear from you all. And I might have to not share my screen to see you all as well. So I'm gonna stop share because I can't see anyone. I'm just like talking to myself.
Thanks, Brittany. Modesta, go ahead.
Yeah, I love the idea, Brittany, of like sharing educational resources with like recipients that want it. Is that something that you all have, like curriculum and like was it designed with, I don't know, like equity in mind, thinking about who would be receiving these?
Yeah, we don't necessarily have curriculum that could be like specific to, um, here's how to share this message, but we do have prepared um, items, I suppose, that could be handed out to people. So that could be, like rack cards, or we have like a wide array of promotional items too. That's not super educational, I guess, but like fun and exciting. Um, I don't necessarily, I think I can say with a lot of confidence that um, we strive to produce content that is within an equity lens, but I would probably need additional advice on if we pass a check on that, admittedly. Yeah.
Go ahead, Benny.
Oh, you're
Thank
muted.
you for that presentation. I too love that the first video about the antler. I remember seeing that and being very moved by it. So thank you. I just have a couple questions to understand deeper the council. One is what's the budget of the council?
Yeah.
When you get $1.50 off of every license, what does that amount to for you?
Yeah, we are fortunate in our budget, admittedly. So for the council, we just set our next fiscal year budget at 2.75 million. We do have a $3 million spending authority. However, that spending authority is using some funds that basically aren't there. Current revenue projections are at about like 2.5 million. So we've been using savings to cover that additional fund for a bit. So 2.5 to 2.7 is around where we typically are annually.
Every year. Thank you.
Every year. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, that's important context.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also was curious about you said that things seem to be leveling off.
Yeah.
And why is that? Do you have a sense of?
Yeah. They're directly correlated to the sale of hunting and fishing licenses,
Oh,
which, when there's less sales, that means there's less revenue for us, essentially.
yeah.
So,
So there are
um,
less sales, or
yes.
it's sort of not going
Yeah,
up. It's just sort of.
yeah, there was a really big surge in 2020 through 2022, right? Because if we think about all of our experiences too, probably a lot of us didn't want to be inside with COVID, and there were a lot of people that were exploring potentially new to them outdoor experiences like fishing or hunting. So there was a pretty big surge like during that time, and we're kind of leveling off. We're not seeing a huge decline. We just had a retreat last week, so we were just talking about license sales in general. But there has been a bit of a shift in, I think it's over-the-counter archery licenses, specifically for out-of-state residences, which did have an effect on the number of licenses sold, essentially, as well.
Mm, thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question, but I want to leave room for somebody else who may want to ask.
Jose, I do have a question just in kind of an align. Sorry, Chris, jumped right before you got on there. Brittany, I work with Colorado State University specifically in the human dimensions of natural resources. So, a couple of our professors do a lot of research around the SCORP and like really looking at like participation trends in outdoor recreation. And when we're looking at it from like always getting my acronyms weird here. Outdoor Industry Association, OIA, their big trends report, right? We're seeing some pretty significant indicators that there will be declines in fishing and hunting. Colorado specifically has some mechanisms in play to kind of help that, but I'm still under the impression that we are venturing into a decline, say in the next 5 to 10 years. Are those conversations kind of coming up right now and really thinking about how we're discussing this not only from like the social kind of marketing piece, but even working with like I think about CSU in particular, right? Like and working with my
Mhm.
group of students, and like regularly have to communicate how important hunting and angling is to conservation at the state level
Yeah.
due to these fees. Whereas like so many of my students are environmentalists that come in or like can be pretty like maybe not anti-hunting, but have some pretty big negative perceptions. And so I'm just really curious when thinking about partnerships, how are we partnering with institutions to get to this demographic population that we're seeing a more significant incline on? So I'd just be curious on what those conversations are looking like.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid discussion. And I should back up a second and say that while the Wildlife Council, we are funded through that surcharge on the sale of hunting and fishing licenses, by statute, we do not promote people hunting and fishing, which feels very bizarre because it directly correlates to our funding. So we are not tasked with getting more people to hunt and fish. So, and we have to be very clear with our messaging that we are not trying to get more people to take up fishing or to take up hunting. We are trying to get them to understand how wildlife conservation is funded in Colorado. And that is all that we are doing, which is a very interesting place to be in because we know and understand that we need support from our audience for hunting and fishing to be able to accept our message. And we are fortunate in that our advertising agency does an annual, what we call a tracker survey, where we survey our target audience as well as hunters and anglers, asking about their appetite for certain messaging or asking about even their appetite for certain imagery that we could be using. And just like, do you support this or do you not? We also engaged in survey collection post the most recent, I guess it might have even been 2 years ago, one of the most recent um, wildlife votes that happened over, I can't remember the bill exactly.
Was
You
it?
know,
Oh, no, never mind. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember. I was trying to like pull that up quickly as you were talking, Dawson. But I would be happy to share too our data from the last couple of years if you guys were interested in seeing it. It gives a good understanding of our target audience, which like is 18 to 44, like I was speaking about, and their how they view hunting and angling, and even how they view imagery with a gun in it, for instance, and what that could mean, and if they even understand what we're trying to say to them. So yeah, I can happily share that with you all. It's really good data if you like data too.
And Brittany, on that real quick, really appreciate it. And it would be okay with I shared that within like my department and stuff because I do feel like a
Yeah,
lot of the folks. Okay, cool.
yeah, it's public information, so we can share it with whoever.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm so
Modesta.
sorry.
Oh,
If I could jump in too fast, then I'm going to have to jump off really quick here in a second, and then I will try to hold back on. But I was just going to ask, um, I'm with, I'm also with Colorado State University, and like from a student perspective, I'm a graduate student, so from a student perspective, I totally agree with Jonathan that the messaging isn't getting out into academic types of spaces. Honestly, until I joined the board, I was totally against hunting and fishing. And since I've joined, that is now slowly starting to change. But are you saying that um if you were invited, so to speak, um to a classroom or whatever, is that something your department would be able to do, or would you not be allowed to do it? Or like, what are some of the ways that we could work on getting this info to students?
Oh, I love that idea. I would say that the council is open to speaking, to classes or, to different student organizations, speaking about how wildlife conservation is funded for sure. We just we are not statutorily allowed to sell hunting fishing licenses to
Okay,
people, basically.
okay, that was my confusion. I,
Sorry, I know it's confusing for
yeah,
us too.
no, I have to come up here in a second, but I would love to get your email. Um,
Yeah.
I would love to share your information with my department too.
Definitely. Yeah, I can share that with you all,
Okay.
with Andrea.
yeah, I'll definitely share Brittany's info out. Such a good conversation. Chris, I want to make sure you have a chance to say something too.
Thank you. Yeah, I thanks so much for this presentation. And just like Andrea, I have seen the commercials while I've been getting gas. Love them. I love seeing things with animals. Um, just thoughts on definitely send us when you have the opportunity to bring on more council members. I think diversity in who is representing on the council is, I put Angel Massey as like she's on the East Slope and is an angler. She would be super cool. We were just talking about her with Crystal's presentation. But getting diversity on that council would be really awesome. Also, like something that's been really valuable on this board are the youth seats. And so, of course, I don't know, changing bylaws of the council is probably like a bigger thing, but like being able to have youth representation, or I'd even just looking at the makeup of the council of like non-hunters, a couple people that don't represent hunting, of just like who are the normal people that need to be hearing this message being
Yeah.
represented on the council. So that's probably a much bigger can that you want to open.
Yeah.
But if there was ever the opportunity to expand the size of the council, I think youth and also non-hunters represented there, and then also diverse voices.
And if you
Yeah.
need some recommendations for like folks that are like anglers, young, that are like members of Trout Unlimited and diverse backgrounds, I got a couple of folks that are kind of through a mentorship program that I've been a part of as I've been tapping into becoming an angler.
Yeah, this group is great for getting the word out about opportunities like this, the
Yeah.
diverse voices.
That's awesome. I love that. I will 100% share the application with you all. And yes, I completely agree. As one of the only diverse members of the council, I align with all of you as well.
Really quickly, Modesta and then Benny.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. And I think that if there could be more than one, that would be most ideal because I think that there have been folks that have cycled in and out of that council. And I mean, just based on pictures, it doesn't look like that really stuck. Um, so curious what's going on there. But I am curious to what extent does OEGP like share resources with our recipients? Is it like by request or do we have like a list? Because maybe this could be something that we add to a list or
Yeah, I can answer that. We don't have like a list of resources, but I think that's a good idea and something that we could talk about. One thing that we do is we host a community of practice quarterly with all of our grant recipients. That's a really good way that Selena and I try to share a lot of CPW resources, honestly, and sometimes resources from outside of the agency, but we have so many free opportunities within Colorado Parks and Wildlife that many of the organizations that we work with haven't heard of yet or don't utilize. So we use that as an opportunity to explain to organizations like how they can create like a fishing clinic for their program. And actually, Brittany's going to come on to our community of practice and talk to our grantees next month in April. So that's one step that we're taking to just open up the conversation with our grant recipients as well, and also hear from them a little bit more on maybe how they want to engage with the Wildlife Council and what would be useful to them and their programs. As far as a list or anything like that, I think Modesta, I usually kind of serve as that connector. Folks will reach out and say, like, hey, do you have a resource for this? And I'm able to usually point them in the right direction. And I think we'll kind of see how that community of practice goes and if there's opportunities for us to share like educational resources and things that the Wildlife Council has with our grantees, then we can do that at that point.
yeah, I love that. I think like thinking about like Wildlife Council, wildlife, inspiring young people, like there's just so much there. I feel like if there could be any like hands-on education, like get them a river otter, face to face. No, I'm just kidding. But I feel like that's just like so impactful for young people and could be really important.
I agree with that. And I'm planning to also approach that community of practice by offering an additional layer. I think I mentioned it very briefly, and I'm sorry, we've gone over time, Andrea, but an additional layer that I mentioned kind of briefly in my presentation, where we allocate a small portion of our budget to speak directly to hunters and anglers. And we do that through sponsoring events, but I think that there's additional avenues of ways potentially the council could sponsor programs or classes that are geared toward hunters and anglers. They don't have an age requirement. So I think, opening up that conversation for the community would be a good approach to that.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that this was a robust conversation and that you all are interested in collaborating further. We can absolutely have Brittany back on, or we can kind of keep thinking about this as a board and reach out with other ideas. But thanks for your time, Brittany.
Yeah, thank you all. I do have to hop off, but I appreciate your time. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
Bye. All right. I will jump right into it. And we've lost a few people, I think. I don't know if Crystal will be rejoining. Um, and then I don't know if Benny's having tech issues. And then I think Mackenzie will hop back on when she can. Um, but we hopefully have 6 folks on here so we can make some decisions later on in the meeting. So if you are able to stay on the rest of the meeting, please do, and we need you here. So if you can give us your full attention for the next couple of hours, we really appreciate it. I will jump right into just talking a little bit about our application process. This will be review for some of you, but it'll be really valuable to have board members who have been involved in this process before kind of lend their voice. And then I really wanted for those of you that are new to get a little bit of insight of what to look for the rest of the year as we roll into creating our application process and receiving applications. So I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat. Oh, thanks, Ashton. Cool. But please just hop off of mute if you have questions or anything like that. It doesn't have to be super formal. I did, with the help of AI, put together this graphic to give you a little bit of a look forward into what our application process looks like for applicants. So it's really divided into 4 steps here. And essentially, what I wanted to get across to you all is that we have a 2-step application process for the Outdoor Equity Grant, which applicants have to go through in order to be funded. The first step is a grant interest form, which I sent out ahead of the meeting, and hopefully you've had a chance to scan over that or take a look at it. And then the second step in that application process is a full application, which we invite the top applicants, the most competitive applicants, to move forward and fill out the full application after kind of reviewing those initial grant interest forms. We haven't always done the Outdoor Equity Grant application process this way. It's something that we started doing last year, was the first year that we did it. And if I'm wrong on that, correct me. Really we've done it for 2 years. So this will be our 3rd year going into it. And the first year we kind of called it a letter of interest. The reason that we do this is, number one, we are a highly competitive grant application. Over the last 2 years, we've received an average of 250 applications every year. That's many, many applications that you as a board need to get eyes on all of them, review all of them, and evaluate them fairly. And that is a hard thing to do for any group of people in a short amount of time. Also, for our applicants who are not competitive or maybe are putting forward an application that isn't going to do as well that year, or maybe has some pieces missing that we'd like them to take back and kind of work on and bring forward bring their best foot forward in the next year. We're able to kind of let them know early that they're not going to be selected for a grant. And that really saves applicants a lot of time and a lot of headache because our pre-application, our grant interest form, is a really, really short application where they're just giving us some basic information and then their scope of work. So we have received, I think, overwhelmingly positive feedback about moving the application into a 2-step process like this. Of course, you can't please everybody, and some people might have their feelings about word counts and things like that, which we'll go into a little bit later in the meeting. But I think overall, folks really like having the 2-step application process and being able to know early if they aren't going to be funded. That way they can kind of focus their efforts elsewhere. I would say maybe some cons about this two-step application process, it does lengthen our process quite a bit because we have to do 2 rounds of review. So it kind of makes our application process a 6-month thing from beginning of June until mid-November when folks are notified whether they've been fully funded or not. Um, and then again, I think it also lengthens the period of time that board members are spending reviewing applications. However, I do think it really evens that workload out over a few different months, rather than having you all read so many applications right in October, right before we make decisions. Raquel, go ahead with your question.
Yes. When you say we have an average of 250 applications, is that on step 1 or step 2? And
Yes.
how many organizations do we filter out into
Yeah,
the actual
good
application?
questions. So 250, that is on step 1. And then we've approached the filtering down through applications different in the couple of years that we've done it. I think last year we looked at our total expected amount of funding, which was $2 million, and we let through about a little bit more than double that amount of funding requests into the second round so that we knew we would have to cut down those applicants by about half to get our final kind of funding picture. The year before that, we had a much larger cohort of applicants that moved forward to the full application process. And that required board members to read more applications in that second round of review. Um, and I think that's something that we can revisit and adjust for this year. It doesn't have to be a set number or anything like that, but what we'll do is we'll look at all of the grant interest forms that come in and then make a decision together on which applicants will move forward to the full application process. Did that answer your questions? Okay, go ahead, Modesta.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I love that you all did that. I'm sure it doesn't please everyone and that isn't perfect, but I think spreading things out is just a really good way to do it and also saving the applicant time. Just to confirm, step 2, all board members look at, and then, or wait, hold on. What is it called? Like letter of interest? Sorry, I'll get the lingo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
grant interest form.
grant interest form. So the grant interest form, all board members look at, and then full applications, all board members look at.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And then do we give feedback on the grant interest form?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
There's opportunity to give feedback, and that's something we're going to talk about, I think, throughout our discussions all this spring. Not every board member takes that opportunity to provide that feedback, which I would like to maybe change if we're able to give some more feedback to folks.
Yeah, no, that's great. I saw that in the feedback that we got from last year, and just coming from the other end of things, like feedback from the grantor is so important because it could really just make or break your life as a person applying for a grant.
Yeah. For folks who were involved in previous years, is there anything you want to add about our application process that I didn't talk about? Go ahead, Ida.
I just want to make a clarifying point because I was confused about the first year. So not all applicants are read by all board members. I just want to like we split it out. So just so for the new guys, like if we got 250 applications, we just, the decision committee kind of decides that we're going to have 5 people review it and then that number gets spread out across all of them. I don't know. So how the magic happens in SurveyMonkey to make it do that. But as a reader, we don't read every single application. And then in the second round last year, which I thought was interesting, a good way to do it is that we tried to review ones that we didn't review the first time. So you might have read, projects A in the first round, and then you're going to read project B in the second round. So that way we kind of all have a little bit of knowledge about all of the applications moving forward.
Really good points. Thanks, Ida. And yes, I will move to my next slide because it goes, well, okay, actually. This is a little bit of an insight into maybe some more of like our deadlines and how that plays into review and things like that. So we have the 6 steps here. Some of these are public facing steps, some of them are more behind the scenes. So as we mentioned, we received those grant interest forms until June 2nd. We'll kind of work together to host a Q&A webinar for applicants, but Selena and I are pretty well able to manage a lot of the questions and asks for technical assistance and all of the stuff that goes on with answering that request for proposals from folks. We'll jump into the eligibility review. Again, another thing that Selena and I will do. So we'll just give a first pass at all of the grant interest forms that we receive. Just make sure we're not passing anything along to you all that isn't meeting our eligibility, either for like the organizational eligibility or type of project. We'll have a meeting on June 9th to just do a little bit of discussion before you all are assigned your applications to review, and make sure that everybody has a good basis for going into that grant interest form review. And then you'll have about 6 weeks, I think it comes out to review your assigned grant interest forms. In the past, we've done 3 board members per grant interest form because it is such a large group of applications that are coming in. They are much shorter, but we try to balance the workload. So we'll really take a look at that when we know how many applications have come in. I think anything under than 3 just gets tricky because we're averaging scores, and a good basis of 3 reviewers per application, I think makes sure that not one reviewer or one review is like really bringing someone's score down, and we can make sure there's agreement on what those strongest applications are. At the end of that review period, we'll have another board meeting to discuss all of the grant interest forms that have come into the board and choose and select that group that will be moving forward to the next portion of the application. That'll be on July 29th. And then we open the full application. Folks will have about 5 weeks to complete that. That'll be a smaller group of applicants that we've selected, and we do ask applicants who have been funded before to show us that they've spent at least 50% of their previous funding at this point in the application. So they don't need to do that in the pre-application phase. They can really wait until they're selected to move forward and we're kind of approaching the end of the year for their spending, so they can show us that they have a need for more funding if they've previously received a grant from us. Then we'll have a meeting to kind of set us up for the second round of review. That'll happen on August 19th, and then you all will get redistributed your full applications to go over. Last year we had 5 board members per application, and I also read and score all of those. So my kind of suggestions are taken into account as well. And then from there, we'll have a meeting in late October or early November to do our final approval. That'll take place over a couple of days. That's when we approve the applications that will be funded. Board members will have opportunity to bring forward any additional applications that maybe weren't in the very, very top cut to discuss the merits of them. And then we also select some runners up every year just in case we find a secret surprise pot of money that we're able to give out. Or, for example, if an applicant isn't able to accept their award or something like that, we have folks waiting in the wings and we don't have to come back and have another meeting and re-vote on things.
Andrea, for like that October meeting, is that not public?
It is public.
It's public.
All of
So
our meetings are public.
okay, so applicants can come and essentially watch us make our decisions.
Yes, and we'll
Okay.
host it in person, but we don't offer an option for people to come in person. They can watch us online.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And then this October 28th and 29th dates aren't set yet, but is something that I wanted to chat with you all about a little bit later in the meeting and see if that works for folks. Okay. Just some other internal deadlines that we have. Of course, we don't have our grant interest form or our application or our rubrics created yet. So I put together just this internal timeline of what we need to get done and when. And this is based on our scheduled meetings. The board will need to vote, have a formal vote to approve the grant interest form, the grant interest form rubric, the grant application, and the application rubric. Okay. I'll pause there. Chris or Ida or Selena, anything else that, or even Dawson, that you want to add that I didn't talk about? I will send all of these slides to you all at the end so that you have all of these dates in mind. And Selena will work on creating some Google Calendar invites for everyone.
I was just gonna say it looks like a lot and it feels like a lot, but Andrea and Selena keep us really well organized and help us with reminders and make the process really clear. I know that like being back at the beginning of this, it felt like this really long timeline, and I was gonna have to dedicate like 20 hours a week during that whole 6-month period. It's not like that, so just don't stress out about it. It's a very manageable process as we have it set up.
I appreciate that. Okay, I want to try to keep us on track today, but one thing that we'll discuss later that I wanted to dive into really, really quickly is another aspect that we added into the process last year was identifying some opportunity areas. So essentially, last year was our 5th year of giving out outdoor equity grants, and we have really good data on where grants have gone out to, what counties in Colorado are being reached by grant funds, how many kids and even adults in each county are being reached, as well as what are kind of like the program areas that we've done a really good job of funding in the past. And I believe I showed you all this map last time, but every year our GIS folks at CPW make a map. It's kind of like a heat map showing how many participants per county over all of the years that we've given out funding are being reached. So this is our most updated map with data all the way through December 2025. The lighter blue counties are counties that have up to 500 participants total, and then all the way up to the red counties, some of those counties have like over 10,000 participants in them. Again, this is aggregated over all of our grant years, so it's not just for 1 year. It's for all projects that were active between 2022 and 2025. So this is a really good piece of data that the board can use to kind of see like where we're doing a good job of funding and where there might be maybe some gaps or some areas of opportunity for us to continue to fund. And then the second map is just all of the projects that were funded in 2025. So that was 24 projects. And I think even kind of toggling back and forth between these two maps, which again, I'll send them to you if you want to spend some more time with them. It gives us, I think you can even see maybe how areas geographically that had been really well served in the past um, were maybe not as focused on for 2025, and we had some good geographic spread across the state with projects that we chose to fund after really looking at those opportunity areas. And then this last slide that I want to show you all is a list of all 9 of the opportunity areas that the board identified last year. Some of them we had really good success with actually funding projects there. Some of them we weren't able to fund projects, so some mixed success there. But those were Southwest Colorado, specifically in the areas of Gunnison, Montrose, Nucla, and Naturita areas. So not really focusing on like Durango or Mancos, some other areas that had been previously really well funded. Northwest Colorado, specifically the cities of Meeker and Craig. The whole Eastern Plains, which if you look at the maps, you'll kind of see why that's named. Pueblo, Trinidad, the Northern Front Range, specifically Greeley and Fort Collins, and then some demographic areas that the board really wanted to reach. So trans and non-binary youth, youth that are in the foster system, and youth that are involved in the justice system, which aren't one of our 5 statutorily mandated demographics that we work with, but we're really kind of maybe like subsections or cross sections, intersectional groups of folks that the board wanted to make sure that we were also reaching. So you'll see that in all of the opportunity areas that were identified last year, except for Meeker and Craig and Trinidad, we were able to fund at least one project. Okay, I'll leave you with that. We're gonna take a break. Let's go ahead and take 6 minutes and come back at 2:35. So take a little bio break. You can keep thinking about the information and we'll have opportunities to chat about it all.
Andrea, how long did you say the break was? Oh, sorry, you're muted.
Come back at 2:35.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, great. Welcome back. I know that presentation was a little bit rushed, so I definitely want to make sure we have space for any other questions that you all have about the process before we jump into some key considerations for the grant program around policies that the board sets every year. So thinking back over the application cycle, review cycle, and opportunity areas, any additional clarifying questions that anybody has? Okay. As those come up, just let us know. And I'm always here to chat as well. I've created a Zoom whiteboard to help us with the next part of this discussion. So hopefully you all can see my screen. Ashton and I met a couple of weeks ago and wanted to open up some discussion to the full board just as we plan for the rest of the grant cycle. So Zoom Whiteboard is a way to kind of collaborate and everybody's on the same screen. So I see people kind of zooming around in here. You can use your mouse to kind of scroll in and out. I can also scroll in and out for folks. Just a little bit of navigation here. If you right click and drag, that will help you move to different parts of the whiteboard. You should be able to collaborate. Okay, Hilda, no problem. By clicking on any of the stickies, you can type right into it, or we have these little stacks of sticky notes up top where you can click and drag and add something if you want to. Over to the left, we have some emoji reactions. So if you see something added by somebody else that you want to give a heart or a star to, question mark to, you can kind of click and drag any of these reactions over something that somebody else has said. And then just clicking on something that you didn't mean to do and hitting delete will get rid of it. So we will all kind of use this together. If you're like really hating this, it's not working for you at all, you can always type in the chat and I'm happy to add your comments in here as well. Any questions about whiteboard? Cool.
I can't see
Okay.
it anymore. How do I reopen it?
Oh,
Embarrassing question. I lost it.
I don't know.
It's okay. I'll just.
There's a share button in the top right corner. At least there should be for you, Andrea.
Okay.
If you created it, and then you should be able to generate a link.
The thing is, I'm just gonna exit it and join it again because I'm only able to share the link with people within the DNR, which is silly. But it's like an overall setting thing. So
So we're all gonna exit out. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll reshare it.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay. So jumping into some discussion here, I'm going to give you all 4 minutes to brainstorm this first question up top. Some considerations for the 2026 grant cycle, and you can answer both of these questions kind of concurrently here. So answer whatever calls to you. What are some of the challenges that applicants face right now? And how might the Outdoor Equity Grant respond to current needs? I'm going to give you all 3 minutes on the timer and we can reevaluate when we get to the end of it, but I'll go ahead and press play and everybody go ahead and add here for the next 3 minutes. Again, if it's not working for you, just send me a chat and I can add your ideas in.
Andrea, do you know how to make the text fit to the sticky note?
It automatically will fit it to the sticky note.
Mine's not doing that for some reason. It's fine. I'll make it work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Modesta, if you click,
I deleted Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it should have like a little text bar that pops up that you can change the font size, but I think its default setting is to just automatically adjust the font size unless you change it.
Okay. Yeah, I used one of the pre-populated ones, so I just deleted that and then generated a new one and it reset.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so it's good.
Benny, if you want to just type stuff in the chat, I can add it in for you too.
Are we only doing the top questions right now?
Yes.
Oh, oops.
What are the challenges applicants face, and how might the Outdoor Equity Grant respond to current needs? All right, 5 seconds left. Do you all want another minute to answer the question on the right side? Okay, I'll add another minute. Oh, and I can put music on, I think. Okay. If you want to keep adding to it, I'll let you all continue doing that. I'm gonna just read through some of the answers that we received about challenges that applicants face. So we have staff capacity, losing other grant or funding sources due to equity work, secure funding, ultra competitive grant applications or grant application cycles, um, funding areas outside of grant specified funding areas, so like structural or admin, federal funding scenarios, especially organizations that fund climate or equity work, losing that federal funding. Again, reduced funding opportunities, more competition for grants from state and philanthropy groups. So I'm gonna group that over here with ultra competitive. Um, they want more agencies and entities provide funds that focus. Oh, so other funding sources that focus on outdoor equity other than the Outdoor Equity Grant Program. Um, Funding for nonprofit entities, businesses, or grassroots efforts, and then transportation needs. Yeah, so I think We had this conversation last year, and there was a lot of changes within federal funding opportunities that a lot of folks on this board clocked, and I think that continues for this year. No worries, Frida. Um, as well as just the competitiveness of grant applications and perhaps even less funding for the same amount of work or more work. Anything that anybody wants to come off of mute and highlight there? Okay. Going on to the second question here, how might the Outdoor Equity Grant respond to current needs? Some ideas for this grant cycle. We have funding an emergency fund for organizations, considering expanding. I'm gonna think that says meant to say what we can support and or why we can support an organization to help those who have more urgent needs for funding, direct the orgs that didn't receive funding to other funding opportunities, partner organizations, continuing to build a strong community network for connections, opportunities, supportive application process that is in line with the grant award amount, opportunities for collaboration with larger funding sources, multi-year funding, general operating funding for orgs whose main function is youth in the outdoors, and support and connection within grantees. So I'd say the two main themes there are support for collaboration, and then some connections to other funding opportunities if we're not able to fund them. Did I miss anything there?
Andrea, I have a quick question. This is
Sure.
more of a you're gonna have to refresh Dawson's memory kind of question, so apologies for that one. When I was thinking about, because I wrote the opportunities for collaboration with larger funding sources, I was thinking about that presentation that we had, oh my gosh, a couple of meetings ago where it was like the organization that was looking at trying to do like all states have this kind of outdoor equity fund. Like it was like outdoor opportunity or something like
Yeah.
that. I guess I'm initially thinking about, when I'm thinking about like groups like REI, the Basel Earth Foundation or Fund, and I'm thinking about some of these larger groups and everything that have this desire or big push to fund more equity-oriented, environmental tied programs initiatives. Is there ever a point where, especially, with the lottery, even though we might be in a better situation than we were this past year, is there ever like a notion that there would be a benefit to collaborate with an outside philanthropy like that? Or is it like, we're a state and we're just not even going to even like touch that?
Yeah, so that is the Outdoor Opportunity Fund Act, which is a national effort to, like you said, support something akin to the Outdoor Equity Grant Program that would be national. And I think what they envision there is that would be a funding source for states that do have statewide outdoor equity funds or outdoor equity grant programs. So that would bring federal funding to our program that then we could utilize, which I think would be wonderful if something like that was available for us. And we already have the infrastructure and the people in place to be able to support something like that. For states that don't have something set up already, I think that would require them to set something up in order to receive those funds. And then, as far as the Outdoor Equity Grant Program here in Colorado, we are able to accept gifts, grants, and donations from outside sources and use that to augment the amount of funding that we have available. So, both of those things are very much on board. I don't know the update of where the Outdoor Opportunity Act is. So, yeah, I don't have an update on that, but if that is something that were to pass, then we would definitely be able to utilize those funds.
Thank you.
Frida.
Hey, I just have a question. I was the person that put the sticky note about funding for non-nonprofit organizations or entities. I know for sure we do allow entities, for example, businesses to apply and to be able to receive funds. I'm curious, specifically, I had a situation where I was talking with someone from Outdoor Afro, and they had like a little branch because Outdoor Afro is a national organization that is in California, but there is a branch, not a branch, it's not even,
like a
it's
chapter
just like
organization.
Exactly, yeah, like a little sub chapter. But they were telling me that they were struggling, like even though they're like kind of like a breakaway, but still tied to the organization, but kind of leads their own initiatives. If something like that, if they would be able to receive those funds independently from Outdoor Afro. I forgot what the whole situation was, but I'm not sure if that makes sense and if they would be willing to receive funds as kind of like a grassroots breakaway. I think they were having a little bit of troubles with their national organization with receiving funds, but I wanted to see if that was a possibility.
So as far as the question of do we fund chapter organizations or like branches of larger national organizations, that is something we are able to do. So like for example, Latino Outdoors, we've funded them before. That's kind of their model, as well as the Mayfly Project. There are some of these like national nonprofits that have different projects or different chapters across the US, and we are able to work with them to fund that. As far as this particular situation that you're referencing, if they were applying as Outdoor Afro, it probably would have to go through their national organization because they need to be incorporated into some tax status or be fiscally sponsored. I think the other alternative there would be if they could find a different fiscal sponsor and then apply through that fiscal sponsor. So you can just send them to me, Frida, and I'm happy to work with them on that.
Awesome. So good. Thank you.
Chris.
Just want to share like super quick update on that outdoor opportunities. That's all still being worked on, but there's also some other legislation that's coming through around education that is trying to increase the cap of Tabor, which would, if that was increased, then the like surplus that would exist would kind of go away, which then what the Outdoor Opportunity Fund is trying to accomplish, which is in surplus years, then this funding would go to like wildfire, GoCo, Outdoor Equity Fund, and everything. So there's currently some competing ballot initiatives um, that we're not sure, everyone that's like doing this is not sure how it's all going to play out in November. So just know that that is out there. And like, while, it'd be really exciting if all of that passes, some would cancel out the other, which would not be very exciting. So I think they're also looking at alternatives. So just for Dawson and everyone else to keep their eyes on the newspaper articles that come out.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, any other last thoughts about how we might respond to applicant needs? It sounds like we're in agreement that grant applications are very competitive, many organizations competing for a small amount of funding, and the pool for like environmental work and equity work funding wise really shrinking over the last couple of years. Anything that wasn't mentioned that we should keep in mind or ways that we could respond to those challenges that are out there? Go ahead, Modesta.
For the so we do a Q&A online like webinar session? We do one of those.
We do one for each kind of cycle of like receiving information from folks.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
one in the spring, one in the fall.
Gotcha. Do we do like, have we ever done like a listening session type thing, or a component of the Q&A be like to address just how like messed up this past year has been? Yeah, and if we incorporated something like that into the Q&A or workshop, or sorry, webinar, would we have enough time to be able to react to it, if we got feedback on like how we could support them better?
I think it depends on what that feedback is. At that point, we'll have our letter of interest already open. So if it's like, this question is really bad and you should ask this instead, we won't have time to edit that. But if it is going to impact maybe like how the board reads those applications and what we're looking for, I think there still would be opportunity to make some changes on the fly. Um, our webinar is an hour and a half long and we go over time every single year. So I wouldn't suggest adding a new component to that. But that's certainly something that we could look at doing maybe like after the application period, or even before. I don't know what timing feels best for that and be able to like invite folks to that listening session.
Yeah. Yeah, I think something like that could be good. I just feel like what I saw on that whiteboard, like that's what stood out to me the most is like a lot of the answers were about just like the funding landscape.
I like that idea. Rebecca.
On that same note, I know you mentioned you and Selena will be hands-on answering the questions within that webinar. Sorry if I didn't hear correctly, but are we supposed to all be there? And if so, how can we help? Like, are we all collectively helping with the Q&A? That's more so
Yes.
my question.
So Selena and I don't answer the questions. We actually assign questions to you all as board members
Okay.
to answer. We answer more like email inquiries and things that come in if people are having issues with the application. But the webinar is really an opportunity for you all to interact with applicants directly, and I think people really appreciate that, and board members who've been a part of it, I believe appreciate it too, being able to hear from people. So generally we ask for those questions ahead of time and we go through people's questions that they submit ahead of time first, and then we give people opportunity to add questions to that after. So we'll kind of create like a script and then we'll assign you questions and then you'll know what you're going to answer. Ida.
Yeah, they make it super easy to participate in the webinar, and it is kind of fun to hear and see what people come up with. But kind of thinking back to that like listening session, one question we had, and I don't remember if it was on the grant interest form or the full application, but we did give and I think Crystal came up with this idea. It was like just a text box where we asked them like, what else do we need to know about like what's happening in your lives, environment, or whatever that is things. What other things do you want us to know? And I did think that that was a helpful section. I don't think it swayed me in one direction or the other in terms of like, get assigning a score in the rubric because that question didn't have a rubric score, but it was a good like centering and grounding exercise for me to read those. So maybe as we're looking at building out our application, we can think about something like that as well.
Thanks, Ida. That was something I was going to add, so I'm glad you brought that up. Benny.
Hi, I was just going to add that just on our side of things, I think I brought this up before, is sort of having sort of a guideline of how we're going to manage this real doom and gloom that's going on, right? Because and I think it's important to sort of have a guideline of that so that we don't get tied up in decisions that are made solely emotionally, right? Like a whole bunch of nonprofits are in trouble. I think I heard the other day that 30% of Colorado nonprofits are expected to fold in the next couple of years because of the change in administration and you know how it's dictating that things be done and 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 so I mean as hard as that is, that's probably a reality that's coming. So how do we as a board make the best decisions possible without stepping into the saviorism mode because we're not going to be able to save everybody. And um, you know, I kind of want to really encourage applicants to come together in their applications. If there was ever a time to partner, to merge, this is the time. Even if they did it for just a temporary period of time to sort of protect each other. So but mostly I just want us to sort of have, as we go into scoring, that just because I did see a lot of emergency people who have emergency situations, so that you're not scoring based on that. Because that everybody's going to have an emergency. 90% of them are going to have less funds that they had. Their funding situation is dire. And and we just can't be making decisions based on that factor. So I just wanted to sort of put that out there because it would behoove us to just have a like this is how we treat these kinds of things, right? Like
No, Benny, and I was gonna add, and I think sometimes it can also fall in the application if we're encouraging too much that they're kind of preaching to the choir of why these grants are important to these communities. Often, if we're pushing like, what happened last year that was so bad? Like ICE, all of this, we're gonna get that on the application so much more, which we've been telling them like, hey, you don't need to prove the point. We know why this is important. This is why we're on the board. You don't need to, we're not like your regular foundation that you have to prove the concept. So I'm just curious of like how much do we also state of like, do we need to know the state of the state in the past year? Because that overpowers the application so much rather than the scope of work and what they're gonna do and what they're gonna implement. Because we don't need their writing team to spend time of that either, because that's time and cost for the organization. So just maybe be conscious of that and how much we're saying, like, yeah. And I think though, in like a public space, in kind of in the meeting, in where they're able to maybe it's like, I'm curious, Andrea, is it maybe like a work cloud or something that can be put in like a chat? Like, what are the things that made it the most challenging in the past year for meeting, fundraising, et cetera? Can be more like a work cloud activity kind of thing to bend it versus we wanted to make it part of the application, because if not, that consumes more of the application process than it actually should be.
Thanks, Hilda. Okay, great discussion here. One thing I really want to,
sorry, can I add one more thing?
yeah,
Just a thought for you all. This data that you're collecting on how the nonprofits are feeling and where they're at, that you might consider sharing that with like the Colorado Nonprofit Association or CNDC, just the bigger entities that are handling this this really tough place that we're in, because that would also help them inform the work that they're doing on behalf of all nonprofits. So I would encourage you to think about like packaging that up and sharing it so that the people that are in sort of nonprofit, at the higher level working on the state of nonprofits can benefit from this information.
good idea. Okay, we'll come back next meeting and see what we can do, whether we want to make it its own kind of listening session or just really quickly incorporate it into the webinar somehow. So thanks for all of that feedback from you all. One thing I really want to make sure that we discuss this meeting is our $100,000 maximum ask for the Outdoor Equity Grant. And for a little bit of background for you all, so we've gone through 5 funding rounds. The first funding round, the maximum ask was set at $250,000. And ultimately, the amount that was available for that first round of funding was around $1 million. So that average funding amount was much, much lower than 250,000 in the first year. In the second round of grant funding, the board decided to move that maximum amount to $100,000. And it's kind of sat there since then. Every other round, organizations have been able to request up to $100,000 from the Outdoor Equity Grant. So, question for you all, does a $100,000 maximum still meet the needs of the Outdoor Equity Grant program? And I'll put that question in the chat as you're kind of mulling it over.
Did we get any feedback specifically about that in recent years?
Not specific feedback about the maximum. Our average request is $83,000. So, and the most requested amount is $100,000. I think that more reflects the fact that organizations will apply for whatever the maximum is on a grant, usually. Especially if they're using like paid grant kind of writers and things like that. For board members who have been part of the decision making in the past, what have you noticed about that $100,000 maximum? Thanks, Benny. Benny says, I still think 100K is the right number.
I think I think there are a lot of organizations that have us as like part of their pie. We're funding a certain percentage, but probably if it was larger, they will go for the 250. You know what I mean? Like I can see a lot of the YMCA's, all this that we're part of their big pie. But if they had the opportunity, they will go higher. They will be really competitive. And are we giving that equity to a large organization that can have that, or to a smaller groups? Those are the ones that actually end up requesting like 18, 10, 30. And I think especially as we have more opportunities to give to more groups, I agree with Benny.
Raquel.
When someone applies for a certain number, are we either accepting or decline that number, or can we negotiate, or we're actually giving you 50 instead of 80?
Yeah. So the board a few years ago put together a couple of values, which you can find on the board website. One of those is respecting the community's ability to advocate for like what they need.
Right.
So the board has really shifted towards trying to fund full requests if possible. We always do have a number of partially funded requests that we end up approving. A lot of times, maybe those are the last 2 or 3 applications that we're slotting into a certain amount of funding. Like, for example, last year, I think we were between 2 organizations, and then the board partially funded both of them to be able to support part of their initiative. Another thing that we did last year was an application came through that had kind of like two components to it. And during the discussion, board members said, like, we really want to fund this aspect of that project, but not this aspect. So then we sent it back to them and said, we can fund the portion of your budget that's covering the workforce development, but the other piece of it we're not going to fund. So those are ways that we've approached it in the past.
Thank you.
Modesta.
Yeah, I think just from hearing Benny and Ilda's feedback, and then also taking note that you all haven't gotten specific feedback on that, I feel like I agree with them. I think 100,000 is like, it's a solid number. And also I agree with Ilda in that, like, if we were to increase that, we do have the limitation that you have to pause every 3 years that after like that you receive funding. So not that it's like our responsibility, we're not fiscally responsible for these organizations, but I think that that could set someone up to be kind of like, you know, on that fourth year, be like, oh gosh, the majority of my funding isn't coming in because I can't apply. So I like 100,000. It feels appropriate, and it's still just like so significant. It can make such a difference. So that's my thought.
Great.
Yeah, I
Go
agree.
ahead.
I'm Becca, sorry. But I agree too. I also think back to what Bunny said, I think at the beginning of the year, we feel like, if we wanted to fund everybody, we could give, like a few dollars to every organization that applied and really have that benefit, or that money spread out. But I think it does come down to like, we have to still decide, no matter how much money we have, what the projects we want to fund. And I don't, right now, based on what everybody is saying, I don't see like how increasing that amount would kind of change our problem or change the issue of, like, you will still have the issue of deciding who to give the money to, if that makes sense.
Thanks, Mackenzie. I think another benefit of keeping it at 100,000 is that applicants have grown accustomed to that over the last 4 grant rounds. And I think while we always have it within our purview to change that, if that's no longer working for us, we want to raise it or lower it. I think that people really do appreciate consistency that they can kind of count on. Okay. I'm not hearing any kind of advocates for changing it. So I think we can move forward with that, and that helps Selena and I in our communications going out to folks here soon. Okay, and then maybe a little bit shorter of a conversation here, hopefully. We receive applications every year for projects that are technically eligible within our rules, but not many of those projects are funded. I think what comes to mind for me is like traditional sports programs, things like soccer or softball, sports fields, playgrounds, outdoor classrooms, things like that. I'm curious if there's a way, I'm curious if there's an appetite from you all for narrowing the scope of this grant at all and being able to turn away some of those proposals before they come in, if they're not ultimately going to be funded, or if you all see kind of a utility in keeping this grant opportunity really broad and responding to those requests as they come in.
You're saying those are typically not funded, Andrea?
We funded a few of them. We funded like a pickleball court um, on tribal lands. We've funded a kind of like sports renovation at a school over on the Eastern Plains, but I can only think of a couple of projects. And oftentimes, like the component of conservation and care for the environment aren't woven in as deeply into those types of requests. We've never funded a playground.
So I feel like often I think it's like cities can fund them or, municipalities or something like that.
Yeah. Dawson.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking of like, there's still these like counties that we haven't had projects in before. And I guess I would be hesitant to take opportunities from like getting those, at least one project or those funds out to communities that might just not have the outdoor recreation infrastructure in place, where it is like something like this might be one first step in that situation. And so I was just kind of like sitting with that as you were even mentioning the Eastern Plains. So I have that hesitation kind of bubbled up in my mind. I don't know. I would be curious to see what other people's thoughts are thinking about the counties in particular that don't have that infrastructure in place. And we want to make sure that those projects are getting out and about. Yeah.
Benny, go ahead.
No, I don't have an answer. This is a tough one. I'll just put when I'm thinking. On one hand, we also, as a value, have committed to allowing communities to define what outdoors mean to them. And I really, I really believe in that. And on the other hand, um, you know, I want my urban kids to get more than basketball courts. And in some ways, I feel like if I'm in a position to make them have to ask for something else, it opens up a new opportunity for kids, because in some cases the people that are supporting these kids and leading these organizations, at least some of the not if they're not in the outdoor space, if they're just like in youth development space, those leaders are just bringing what they know, what they've been offered, in life. And it may not be extraordinary outdoor experiences, right? So they're just offering to kids what they know, what they have. And I think this board brings an opportunity to go beyond that. So it's a tough one. I really don't know. And I also going on what Dawson just said, I also feel like whenever I felt like the pickleball decision from my perspective, I said yes to that because it was way out there and they didn't have anything else. And and so for some communities, it really should, they really know what they need and what they want. I think it's harder for me when it's the urban communities.
Thanks, Benny. Go ahead, Chris.
Just give a really quick example, kind of how we handle this from like the GoCo side of, GoCo funds. There are things that we say that we fund that we say no to all the time. And an example of that is schoolyards. And what we do is we give advice, and it could just be like that the board or, as we're, talking to potential applicants, telling them like what is going to be a competitive example of a playground or of something like the pickleball thing. And so schoolyards for GoCo, when that community can show GoCo that that schoolyard is the main gathering spot for the outdoors for that community, it's, the only park in the community, more than likely it's going to be a competitive grant. Whereas here in Colorado Springs, there's 70 elementary schools. It'll be really hard for the community to say this one elementary school out of 70 is the key place for outdoor recreation for Colorado Springs. And so, I think leaving, like Dawson said, leaving things on the table, letting communities define themselves just because we haven't funded doesn't mean we won't. But being very honest with people of like, hey, if you bring your playground, for your, you know, daycare center in an urban area, it may not rise to the top. Whereas if it was the only playground in a community that needed accessible equipment, maybe we're going to be a part of it. I think those things are hard too because they tend to be in the millions of dollars of a project, and so them being really specific of like what's the impact going to be of the $100,000 or $50,000 that gets contributed in this overall thing that we know is going to take a lot more money than what we're able to provide.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, Chris. I think I'm of the opinion that just hearing and understanding that this board wants to do things a little bit differently, and we want the communities to tell us. I think if the question is, do we start filtering these out? I think my opinion is no, because yeah, I agree, Chris. Keep the door open because we don't know until they tell us. And yeah, I also think there's like really like interesting new things kind of happening with like parks, like urban parks and schoolyards and things like that, that like that's going to keep evolving. And so it'd be interesting to see kind of what types of proposals we get. I love the idea of, I think, yeah, maybe just defining somewhere like this could be like a little group of types of projects that maybe we have a little blurb about that we can provide to people to give them a sense of like what exactly we're looking for under that under this umbrella.
Go ahead, Hilda.
I think Chris kind of not stole my thunder, but elevated it, what I was going to elevate. I think especially it's like, what are the details and what are we funding in this parks or whatever? I think, it's still Modesta. I think we're not saying we will never like fund a part, but are we funding language justice in a part? Like what specifically it is that it's also within the values of this board, that why we have to do it is in an area that's underserved. I think there's so many aspects to it, but I think we had cases of like, I think it was when we were reviewing it was like a park in Fort Collins, and I looked at the radius of how many parks were around, and it was like 25 parks that I could literally count. And I was like, do they need a park? I don't think so. So that's I think maybe what we're talking about. And I think is, should it be funded? Are we the right, like, is there a gap? And are we filling the right gaps that we need in the community?
Wonderful. Okay. I think that was all well said. So we'll go ahead and for the purposes of our grant guidelines, we'll keep that open as we have in previous years. And I think the webinar will be a really good place to address some of these questions. And you all can kind of voice everything that you voiced here with applicants. Okay. I'll hand it off to Selena now, who will give a review of applicant feedback from last year.
Thanks, Andrea. Give me a few minutes to just get my screen up. And I know you guys had this, or at least the PDF version of this feedback to look over, but I'm just going to take a few minutes to go over it really quick. Give me just a moment. Okay. Okay, can you guys see the screen fully? Okay, perfect. All right, so we've been having a lot of really good conversation about this upcoming cycle of the Outdoor Equity Grant Program. And it's really good to look back at, last year, and we had some additional feedback questions on the grant interest form and application that the people who applied gave to us. And I took the time to go over it and kind of organize it so we can all look at the data and hopefully bring that to this cycle. So, first slide. Did that change for you guys?
No,
Is it on the second slide or the first slide still?
it's on the first slide.
Oh, that's so weird. How about now?
No.
Hmm. My Zoom has been like freezing today, so that's
Okay, I can share it.
okay. Sorry about that.
Go ahead and, oh, now it's sharing the second slide.
Oh, now it's working? Okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully it stays like that. Okay, so the first feedback question that I was able to kind of put together was, how did you hear about this grant opportunity? We got a lot of really good feedback as like the main source being the Colorado Parks and Wildlife website, and then other communications like press release, social media, and then it goes on to the email and newsletters, other organizations and community partners. And then I'll get into like some of the other, tell us more and let us know, and then the grant database or search engines. So Andrea and I were talking about this when we were going through the information. And since Colorado Parks and Wildlife was the main like highest percentage that people were hearing about this grant opportunity from, we definitely like it shows that Colorado Parks and Wildlife is like a key funder, and people do know about a lot of their funding opportunities. They know a lot about the Outdoor Equity Grant Program, and they come back to it year after year. And I think that's why that percentage is so high. Again, other Colorado Parks and Wildlife communications that are tied to CPW, like our website, the press releases, social media, also have a large reach. Some examples of like other organizations and community partners are like Get Outdoors, Leadville, Vail Resorts, Empower Schools. And these are just kind of some of the specific details that people put in the feedback that they specifically heard the grant opportunity from. New Mexico Outdoor Recreation, which I thought was interesting, and Rising Ramps Alliance. Sorry if my dog is like also upset in the background. She's cut off from this area of my house. So if you hear her barking, I'm sorry. But we have a lot of community partners that are spreading the outdoor equity grant information as well, which is nice to hear. And then last year we did newspaper ads for the first time, and that was really cool. And we had one person leave a comment saying that they saw it in the Walsenburg golf course. There's a newspaper in there. So it's cool to hear that our outreach is like kind of getting out into some other spaces, but something for maybe the outreach committee to look at and see if there's any areas of opportunity we can, use in this from this data. Okay, so statistical overview for last year. We had 244 grant interest forms submitted, kind of going back to what Andrea said of having like 250 average grant applications every year. 54 moved forward to the full applications, and 178 applicants left feedback, and about 69% completed the feedback portion, which is a really good amount. I know we were a little bit hesitant, like if people would leave feedback. And I know like sometimes like when we're on things, at least for me, and there's like something that pops up and it was like, hey, rate your experience or like leave a review, people tend to like click past it. But it's good to know that like a lot of our applicants like took the time to leave their feedback and like let us know what they liked and what they didn't like. And actually, in this pie graph on this slide, we had a lot of really good amount of people say that they didn't have any difficulty with the application. At least the percentage of people who took the time to leave feedback, said that they thought everything was good and easy. We had a very small percentage say no, or I mean, yes, that they had some difficulty, and we'll go over that in the next few slides. And then some people, about 30%, left it blank. But overall, we had a lot of really good amount of people who left feedback, which is good. So I kind of went through all the feedback, grouped it together into common themes, and we have some people who left really good feedback about, their experience, and then some people who also left feedback about things that we need to work on. But I grouped it together and kind of put some like supporting quotes in there as well. So I think the most amount of feedback that we got was really, really good, and people were, talking about the ease of use and accessibility. A lot of applicants really loved that it was simple, it was very easy to apply, very user-friendly. A lot of people said that they loved the two-step application process, which is nice. I know we were talking about that as well. And the SurveyMonkey process was a lot easier to navigate. And a lot of people, a few, called it the easiest grant application process they've experienced. So, and then there's like some quotes that I put at the bottom that kind of support that. And it was good to hear, people say that they had a really good and easy time with it. Support and resources was also a major thing that a lot of people highlighted. They really enjoyed the webinars and the Q&A sessions that we did. They thought they were very helpful and informative. The responsiveness and communication was very much appreciated. And I think they're talking about like admin stuff between like me and Andrea when they email about like specific grant questions and things like that. And then the board member panel, they thought was also very insightful. I think people like to hear from the board members and, get their specific takes on certain questions or, insights on like how they should be doing their application. So a few people touched on that as well. And a lot of people made sure to highlight that in their feedback. Okay, so kind of going into more of some of the things that some folks said that they thought we could work on, specifically to the grant interest form in this slide. Some people suggested longer word count limits to explain like in more depth. There's some confusion with like inconsistent word limits, and overall, the people, that small percentage who did say they had issues with the application, did highlight that they wanted higher word counts. So some of these quotes that people or feedback that people put in were like some of the word caps were challenging. We didn't have enough space to elaborate our project, and we would really love, and kind of going backwards, it sounds like some of these people had applied for the grant in the past. And like even that like bottom quote or the middle quote, they said this was difficult to do under 400 this year without sounding generic. I think some people noticed like the different word count from last year to this year. So they're kind of, asking us to change that so they can be a little bit more broad and explain some things better. Technical issues and suggestions for the application. Adding a word count tracker, someone definitely asked for, and then fix word limit inconsistencies and allow attachments, quotes for quotes and testimonials. There is like some, and this is specifically for the application, there was a little bit of a confusion. One of the questions had a 100-word maximum, but there was a 500-word maximum underneath, which was like a little confusing. One person asked if like there was a chance to put like a photo or like testimonial to further explain the grant project. And I know SurveyMonkey can't necessarily like put a word counter on like that part of the application, but we can mention maybe in the webinar, like if you guys want to copy and paste like in a Word document so you know what your word count is, and then like paste it into SurveyMonkey, you might be able to like track your word count a little bit better. But these are just like some of the things that folks have touched on that they would like to see different the next time around. More feedback and clarity that I was able to organize, just request overall for more feedback on denied applications. I know we went over that earlier. If we could just take some more time, like when we are putting feedback on someone's application to just exactly explain why. I think people want to do better and they want the grant money. So I think that's something that, people really want to know that information so they can, secure funding possibly in the future, know what they did wrong and come back better. Suggestions for more information about rubric evaluation process. Someone did say that we were the only like application or they're used to applications providing a rubric when they're applying. So maybe that's something that we can, bring up to one of the committees and talk about a little bit more. And then some other questions about budget expectations and how scope of work affects eligibility. And again, maybe we can also talk about that within the webinar or in the committees and figure out a way to talk to or maybe send that information to grantees so they have a better understanding about those questions that they have. Some specific application or grant interest form versus application feedback. Overall, like all the feedback from last year was really positive, really good. People had a really easy time applying. They applauded our, application for being, again, like the easiest application that they've come across. Very user friendly. I know like we worked a lot to make that happen for not only like on our side, but on their side as applying for this grant. And it sounds like people honestly like felt like this was a very short, simple, easy application. And feel free to, read through some of these quotes and everything that I put down. But yeah, it was really good to read and good to hear that people didn't find this, daunting at all because there's already a barrier with the stuff that we're trying to fund. So we don't want to make the application process like that much harder. So it's good to know that people are having an easy time with it. Some top 3 recommendations for the board that I just kind of came up with based on some of the things from this feedback. Spending time discussing word count limits, providing community partners with tools and graphics for outreach efforts, since that percentage of like, how did you hear about this grant opportunity? A good percentage of it came from some of our community partners. So like maybe providing those community partners with more tools since people are a good chunk of them are hearing about the grant opportunity from them. And then also reviewing the data in the communications and outreach committee to refine outreach efforts and areas of opportunity. So as we identify new areas of opportunity, what data from like, what I shared, like what can we use to come up with like new strategies, new outreach implementation to reach more people, or maybe double down on the places that people are hearing, about the grant opportunity the most from. So just things to think about, but that is all that I have for you guys today. And yeah, does anyone have any questions for me at all? Anything about, oh yeah, Benny.
Yeah, I was just curious as to, um, I mean, I love that we do this feedback stuff. And I was just curious about like the word count piece. So how many people that
So
are wrong?
yeah, so it's interesting because the percentage that like 1.2% of people who replied like yes, I had an issue with this application, there were actually 3 separate people who left feedback. But then additionally, the people who had answered no, that they didn't have any issues with the application, praised how easy and simple it was, but then they ended up putting like, well, we would appreciate more words, or a higher word count limit. So I would say like roughly, like from my memory, at least like 10 people from those 178 people who left feedback.
Okay. And then uh do you know if the people that said that the word count wasn't enough, do you know if they were funded or not?
I did not look at the specific organization that left the comment, although I probably could pull up that report and leave that column checked with their name, and I can just like see who specifically said that.
Yeah,
Would you
I
guys
mean,
want to know that? Like,
the only reason I ask that question is because I find it weird that people want to have to say more, that want bigger. That's just
yeah,
more work. That's just more time. It's very odd.
yeah.
Um, I- and I wonder if the people that said that doesn't work for me are did not get funded, and so they feel like they didn't get funded because they couldn't explain it all.
That very well may have to do with that. And I can definitely look and see like if the people who left that feedback did end up getting funded or not funded. But, and there was one that I highlighted in one of the slides. Someone said like, oh, this was more difficult to do with 400 words versus like 800 words that we had like the year prior or something. So there are probably definitely like people who have applied before who like notice the word count difference, and then other people who are like, well, why can't I explain everything and like leave a photo and thinking that
Yeah, yeah.
might also help their chances of getting funded.
But don't we give a word count and say like, wouldn't I thought this was what we did, that it would be like um 400 is the max and you can
Mhm.
go over, but 400 is you can if you can give it to us in 400, we would prefer that.
We
Right.
played around with having no, like, it wouldn't cut people off on the application if they went over it. And that didn't work for us
Okay.
because then everybody goes over it. And we also have to balance what people want in the application with everybody's workload on this board. So if people are
Yeah,
giving
yeah,
us
yeah,
1,600 words,
yeah.
even though we suggested 400 words, which is exactly what happened, it's very hard to distill that down when you're reading 80 of those.
Yeah, and I actually don't think people think about that, right? They're only thinking about it from their perspective, but they should be thinking about it as like, oh, all 11 of them have to read so many. What if I don't know I don't know if my application is going to get to they're going to read my application at 6 p.m. when they've read 10 others. I mean, all of that influences things. And so
I will say
I'm
though.
fascinated by this wanting to give more.
When I was with Vibe Tribe Adventures and I was working on like the scope of work for like grants and stuff, that honestly is something that does not run through your head. You just want to
No.
like make sure you get all the details in, you're, iterating, like making sure your points are valid and thinking about a bunch of other things. So obviously people are like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm at my limit already? Like what do you mean? I need more. I need more space." So I get it from their perspective. I get it from our perspective.
I
It's
do get
probably
it from
like
their
a happy
perspective, but
medium.
I think they need to think about like, oh, how tired are these people when they're reading? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And maybe that's something that we can also like talk about in the webinar. Like we all read every single word. Like nothing is like put into some generator. Like just, know that we pick these word counts based on like our capacity and your capacity in mind. So maybe that's something that we can just talk about and hopefully get on the same page. Um, Ashton.
Yes. Are they filling this out? Is this with like the secondary section of the application? When are they getting this feedback form to fill out?
Yeah, so this feedback is from 2025, the 2025 cycle. So last year when we opened the grant application in April. So all of the people who took the time to like put in the grant interest form, they had that feedback section at the bottom of their application, and then some of the people who were able to get like moved forward to the full application also had that same section for feedback, and they filled it out at that time as well. So between like April of last year and then I think like folks moved forward around like June or something, Andrea, if that's correct. And they were
They
able to
move
leave
forward in August.
in August. Okay.
And so they have opportunity to fill out the feedback portion, both in the grant interest form section and if they make it to the full application
Okay.
as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Modesta?
Is this something that I forget exactly what the committee's called, but the application committee is gonna like kind of make a decision on based on this conversation?
Yeah, application committee, probably like outreach committee as well with like how did you hear about the grant application? Probably take some of that data and also like the entire board, like if you guys felt like there was something that was highlighted that you want to bring, to attention and like maybe consider like, oh, this could be a new area of opportunity or maybe something to bring up to a committee that you're not on, like not just one committee, but everyone.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I think the 400 word count is pretty standard. And yeah, I've had actually I feel like more standard is like 300. But so I feel like 400 is like a good amount. I know it is hard though to like when you are really trying to get a point across and you don't have any words left. I know that frustration. And so I can imagine it came from like someone who's in that kind of situation. I'd be open to like increasing it, but not by much. I think that's like where I'm at with it. I did want to ask about another point of feedback that we got was about attachments. And yeah, is that something that we should discuss too, or yeah, where are we at, or has that been discussed?
No, we haven't discussed it yet, but the only feedback about attachments that I got was well, it was two people actually, who one wanted to attach a photo about the grant project as a whole, and then someone else who wanted to like attach testimonials, like videos, things like that, to like further explain like why they should get funded.
Yeah, I love when I'm an app someone who's applying for a grant, I love the opportunity to do something like that. And I think when you are looking at a lot of words as a grant reviewer, like a picture can be a real nice break or like a nice visual graphic or something like that. I think supplemental documents make a lot make a lot of sense for grant applications and don't tend to add that much more work. If anything, they help you kind of like bring it all together. Um, so I was just gonna voice uh my opinion around that. I think it's a great idea if we can do it. I also know that might not be possible with SurveyMonkey. So
Yeah, Andrea, can we do that with SurveyMonkey?
Yeah, and I would suggest that the application and rubric committee consider that when they're putting together the forms.
Okay, Mackenzie.
And I was going to ask, is there any way, I wonder if it would be helpful if, like, we could add possible, like, successful grant application examples on the website? Or, because I feel like if people were to see like, how successful grant applications were structured and kind of what that looked like more, then maybe they would be able to think about like what to say more.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I think that came up last year as well. Some people asking like, well, what does a fully funded grant project application look like? And maybe that's something we can also discuss in the application committee.
Yeah, we've talked about that before, and ultimately, the board in the past has decided not to provide those successful applications there are other grant programs within CPW that post all of their successful applications as a PDF. So we can do that if we decide to, and we can add it to a topic of future discussion. But really quickly highlighting, I think, where that's gone in past years is previous boards have felt that if we provide that, then every application that comes in will look really similar and either like think that they need to utilize keywords or structure their proposal to us in a certain way, which generally isn't the case. And if applicants are not being chosen for funding, it's not because they didn't like put a certain keyword into their application. It's really that those proposals are being evaluated based on the need that's there and the priority areas of the board, and how well they speak to the values of the program. So the board has really opted towards, like, again, sharing the values that we have and asking people to fulfill those in their application. I think every grant writer wants like the secret keyword or special sauce that's going to get them funded. And ultimately, this is just a competitive grant application where last year we were able to fund 10% of requests. And even though we received many more wonderful applications that the board would like to fund, we just weren't able to. So I know we've had that discussion before, and we can certainly bring it forward for the next meeting as well.
Yeah, I get that just really quickly. But I'm thinking like when my lab had applied for like NIH grants, the NIH website have successful examples that, we do try to like take those examples into account. It doesn't mean that the NIH is going to fund no problem because it's really hard to get NIH funding, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we're doing anything wrong, but at least I feel like having an example is a good way to learn, what we're looking for, but I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I hope our application's easier than an NIH application.
Yeah. But when I see it, it is way easier. But
Benny, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say a couple things. One is, yeah, I mean, I'm one of the board members that opposes that, and 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 I would be open to it, only if we get the permission from those applications that we're going to share, for us to do that. Because otherwise, I think is giving people, an opportunity to sort of copy, paraphrase whatever that somebody else has had. So if the applicant that won is okay with us sharing their application, then I'm okay with that. But without that permission, I'm not. And then the other thing, um, uh, I will say, one for the application committee, which I'm not on, is that I wonder if you're going to have a discussion about the role of AI and what our okayness or not is with applications being written with artificial intelligence. So I'm looking forward to whether you all will have that as a discussion point and what you were thinking about it. And then last but not least, this is a tough one. I had a very successful boss in the area of advertising that taught me this, right? Like, if less than, well, for him it wasn't 10%, but in this case, less than 10% of the people that submit an application have a problem with the word count. And in any sort of consumer market situation, you would probably just say that's not big enough for us to make a change.
Thanks, Benny. Somebody else had their hand raised.
Raquel, did you have something to add? I think you had your hand raised.
I did, but I know we're running out of time, and I'm meeting with Andrea another time, so I'll just move it to that meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Great conversation. We'll move the other part of our agenda that we didn't get to, we'll adapt it and move it to the next meeting. Just some really quick housekeeping things so that you all can all be aware. You should have received invitations to the committee that you are a part of. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll have all of those first meetings. So those are small groups, so please make it if you are able to so that you can contribute to that conversation. Each of those groups will take some of the things that we've discussed today and then bring back to the full board some decision items and ways that we can move forward. During our next board meeting in April, we'll need to approve the grant interest form. So just keep that in mind. If you haven't had a chance to look over last year's grant interest form yet, please take a look over that. And we were going to get feedback from you all today. So the application and rubric committee will just have to move forward with editing that. If there's anything really burning that you didn't get to talk about today, changes that you'd like to see, and you're not on that committee, you can either join that committee and give your input there, or just send me your feedback and I can make sure that that committee kind of takes that into account. So that's my one little piece of homework for you all. As far as the communications and outreach committee, I'll work with them to schedule the grant interest form webinar, so the Q&A, but anybody on the board can join that. So we'll let you know what that date is so that you can join if you're able. The last thing that I wanted to chat with you all about is just scheduling our final meeting of the year. So you should have invites in your calendar for all of our meetings in June, July, and August. We'll skip September for a meeting, but we do need to schedule our last meeting of the year. I've been working with Chris Obi from GoCo, who joins us on our meetings here, to see if we can meet at the GoCo offices. I know there was some interest in meeting somewhere other than the Colorado Parks and Wildlife office at 6060 Broadway, so that's perfectly fine. We can do that. I wanted to get reactions from you all on October 28th and 29th and whether those dates you have any conflicts with. It's a Wednesday and Thursday, so pull up your calendar now. Let me know if you have any vacations or other meetings scheduled that you wouldn't be able to join.
Just in general, that's right before election time. It's just a hard time for me, but I'll be present as I can be. But I just know that time.
Yeah.
So the always last meeting for me.
It's always either like right before the election or right after. So I don't know which one you prefer. Um, yeah. Sorry about that. It's just the way that our timing works.
No, totally. Totally.
Okay. I'm not hearing any um
I know I have a conflict in October. I am trying to find it. But I apparently did not put the date on here.
Okay.
I will email you.
Okay, sounds good. Email me.
Cool.
I'll send it out in my follow-up as well. Just a reminder, once we have that date set, you are expected to be at that meeting as a board member. It's the most important meeting of the year, and we really need everybody present there. So I'll give everyone a little bit more time to respond to that, and then we'll try to get that
So
scheduled.
is that when we're deciding on grants?
Yes,
Okay.
that's exactly right.
But if needed, we wouldn't be would we be required to meet in person?
We would meet in person, and it will be in Denver.
Okay.
And then for any folks that are out of town, we'll provide accommodations. We'll provide breakfast and lunch, everything that you need. Okay, I know we're slightly over time, so I'll send a follow-up to you all. Please keep a lookout for that in your email and respond to me on all of the pieces that I need your feedback from. That way we can get that meeting scheduled and get our room kind of reserved for those 2 days. Other than that, thank you all for your attention and your participation. I know these are long meetings, but there was really wonderful discussion, and I'm looking forward to working more closely with all of the committees over the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.